All right, we're live now. I'll let the chief get back to his desk and then we'll start.
Okay, now we are streaming on YouTube. We're all set.
Great. All right, thank you for all your patience. We're getting a late start. It's 1:26 p.m. I'm going to call the special workshop meeting together with the District 4 and District 21 boards of commissioners. This workshop is designed to prepare the boards with some background information regarding levels of staffing, apparatus, and facility. We're going to visit the fire district RFA financial options for funding and look at some financial modeling. And so again, I'll call the meeting to order. I don't know if anyone has any issues with the agenda. You should have seen it, and just for clarity, I think we'll do a roll call so everyone knows who's here. And then we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda. So Bruce Ansel, District 21.
Rich Bossman, District 21.
Harry Andrews, District 4. John Crawford, District 21. So,
Dave Hansen, District 4.
So we've had some technical difficulties with people's Zoom computers being muted and not muted. So if you didn't hear, Scott Fisher and Harry Andrews and John Crawford are present here right now. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda as has been distributed in your packets. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Been moved. I'll second it. And all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, so the agenda's been approved. And I'd like to start by thanking Karen Reed and Bill Cushman and Chief Vanderveen and Jenny and all the staff that has helped in preparing this packet. There's a lot of information here to cover today. And we're kind of in a weird situation with us supposedly trying to meet in a decent room, socially distanced, and provided extra feedback to our laptops. So we've got people spread out all over the place. So we're going to do our best to make this happen. And I'm going to turn this over to Karen Reed at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Ansel. Good afternoon, everybody. So we have a full 4-hour agenda for you. We can try to catch up a little bit as we go, and we'll do that. Thank you so much for making time and for your patience with absorbing a lot of information today. Won't be the last time you see this data, but we are really hoping to come out of here with a good sense of where we have support or not for the chief's proposed investments that would be needed to maintain the service levels to your communities over the next 7 years. What would be needed in the way of additional staffing, facilities, and apparatus. Before we get to that discussion, that's what is going to come later. We're going to try to set some foundational background by looking at budgets, your legal range of authorities for raising money, and some basic an introduction to the financial modeling that we can do once we know what you would like to see in that baseline level of service going forward. This is all leading towards being able to develop the financial plan for the proposed regional fire authority. And what we're doing today will end up being part of the RFA plan and the ballot measure, at least it will lead to those types of decisions being made, even if we don't get all the way there today. This is our starter on all of those issues. Before I go any further, did anybody have any questions right off the bat? I'm going to say the answer is no, but I can't see most of you. So if you need to raise your hand or something, you can use the reaction button at the bottom of the, there's just a clap and a thumbs up. But if you want to make a comment and of a presenter, we might need to see you on camera to know that. You can also use the chat room today. We are hoping that we will get a lot of input from you as we go through each of these discussions. So make sure you locate where that mute button is and don't lose track of that, because we are going to want to hear from you as we go forward. We have a break scheduled in 2 hours, but by all means, if you need to take a break at any time, please do. That's totally fine. And we'll have a scheduled break in a couple of hours. And with that, I think I'm going to introduce part 1 of our agenda. This is part 1 of 8. So that's how you can tell how much progress we're making. Keep track of that number. So what we wanted to do first was just take a quick refresher on your operating budget and what's it been doing in the last several years, and what takeaways, if any, does that give us as just a starting point to having this financial discussion. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He's going to talk about 10 minutes, and we'll have up to 10 minutes for questions or comments. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Thanks everybody for being here. I will try to make this as painless as possible as we talk about budgets and money and all that good stuff. I know we just got done approving the budgets for 2021, so some of these forms will look familiar to you. These are what you have in front of you is really just a 1-page broken down budget summary of where our money has gone over the past 5 years. And I know that's a little bit further back than maybe we wanted to go, but I think it's healthy to look back and see how the district is growing and kind of financially where we're putting our money. We're definitely maturing as a fire district. I mean, we have to remember that both of these districts started as they really started as volunteer departments that have grown to have, to become paid professional departments. And so there's been, we've changed modes a few times, and it's reflective in our budgets, and we'll see that as I kind of go through this. So what I have here is you have the legislative, you have each division broken down year after year from 2016 on to 2021 budgeted, and the increase in that division each year. So you can instead of me going through each one line by line, you can take a look for yourself and see where we're putting money and the increases that we've had. I will point out a couple anomalies that questions you may have. If you are to look at the fire prevention division and the facilities division, there's some pretty incredible increases in fire prevention in 2019, a 13,000 or 1,300% increase. Well, that was the year that the district took Chief Hollander and moved his salary from facilities to fire prevention. And it was just an accounting move. I can't say I understand the reason that they did it, but that's why you see these massive numbers, or why you see these big percentage increases. The same thing in the facilities division. If you go look, there's a significant drop in the amount contributed to the facilities division in 2019. That was when Chief Hollander's salary was pulled out, and then an increase in 2020 when we added in a facilities person and then never actually hired the position. And so you'll see it in 2021. We've elected not to go with that because we can't. And so that's why those numbers are up and down like that. Also in the bottom, you see the District 4 contribution to the overall budget, and its increases year after year. I do have on a separate sheet, which is at my desk, unfortunately, a breakdown of where the percentage that they actually fall into the we said 25%, but it really hovers between 23, 24% contribution to the overall budget of North Wacom. Another piece that another piece that we've kind of discovered over time is that, thanks. Another piece we've kind of discovered over time is that past chiefs were doing things a little differently than I would, being that they were, and maybe it's a smarter thing, but they were budgeting savings before they were budgeting for operations. So they were reporting, for lack of a better word, a lower rate of revenues to the board, and then holding that money out for savings from the very beginning. So when you see, like in 2020 and 2021, where you're seeing increases in things, it's because I'm literally using the raw numbers that the county is giving me. This is your expected income. I'm turning around and saying to the board, this is our total expected income. If we stay on budget, we'll have X number of dollars that we can put into savings. If we don't, then we dip into our projected savings. So that's another reason that that over the years, you see maybe a large increase in revenue in the last couple of years, because I'm just reporting the raw numbers that I'm getting from the county treasurer's office. Let me go back to some notes here. So for our current FTEs, the current number of FTEs for the combined district, so I'm talking for District 21 and District 4, is I've got 51 firefighters, 2 mechanics, 1 in prevention, and then also left on my desk, sorry. And then we've got administrator parks, we've got my admin staff, so that's five administrators essentially, staff. So everyone is, as we've talked before, we brought it up multiple times, everyone comes across with the RFA, everyone has a job. And one of the things that I pointed out, for those of you who were able to join me on the public outreach we did the other night, is that as staff, we don't have any extras. We're not 2 full agencies that are going to combine. This is a single. The only thing we have 2 of is governance. So there's no extras. There's a place for everybody within the organization of the RFA. Karen, is there anything else you wanted me to hit on in my budget talk? Seems like there was, and I'm kind of.
No, I think unless there were some takeaways that you have in terms of your sense of how stable the budget will be going forward, or your experience on salary and labor increases, what it's sort of been recently, I think we're good. But
yeah, I think I think we all know that. And I just want to memorialize on the record that we've really asked our employees to be really good partners and sacrificial partners in a way. There's been years where the firefighters and staff have taken 0% wage increases. The firefighters have given back a percentage or 2 on more than one occasion in order to make sure that all operations jobs are funded. We've been the local has been extremely good in understanding partners as we move forward through these harder times. But the hard times are gone, and we never know when they're going to be back. So it's hard to, we can be Chicken Little all we want, but really we've asked our line staff to sacrifice about as much as we can, and it's time for us to do some better financial planning. And I believe Mr. Cushman has a great synopsis of where we need to go and where we need to be. He and I have talked quite a bit in the last week or so. And I think we're going to see that what we can afford to do is fund our current operation and maybe a little bump, but that we have some bigger capital needs, whether it's apparatus or facilities, that are going to require some greater financial planning and asking the public to help us potentially, or looking for other sources of income for us to be able to accomplish. There's an old fire service saying that says you can either have people or you can have nice stuff. Well, we need to find a measure of both, a balance of both. So, okay.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, since that is who is here as commissioners, some of the questions, if you think about the budgeting process that you guys have experienced, what do you think you guys do pretty well? Are there things that you typically worry about? Are we doing enough of X? Do we know enough about Y? Those were some of the questions. What are your reactions and when you look at this budget summary and when you think back over the last few years? Do you have some sort of top of mind feelings or memories about what goes well, what doesn't go well in the budgeting effort? And so that's what we just wanted to talk about here briefly, to see if you have some thoughts there, looking at the 5 years worth of budgets, 6 years worth of budgets. And I'm always going to start with you, Bruce. So, and then we'll just go around. So do you have any, when you think about the whole budgeting effort, what comes to mind?
Well, I think we're just barely hanging on is what my takeaway is. Every year, we are subject to the 1% tax increase maximum. And not to steal the chief's thunder, but I believe our call volume has gone up 44% in the last 8 years or so, or in the study period, and our population growth has increased 11%, and our wages, most recently with the contract negotiations, just to keep pace with cost of living, our 1% allowable is not keeping up with our budget, and so we're robbing future abilities to either upgrade our equipment, which is all aging. If you look at our master plan, all of our apparatus are nearing their lifespan. Our facilities are in, some of them in dire need of either upgrades, remodeling, or just basic maintenance. And the chiefs up to this point have done a great job sort of keeping our rigs on the road. But we're due for some serious analysis. And that's what I like about this project and Bill Cushman's input, is it actually allows us to look ahead, which we've had this planning scenarios. I think when I first started, we had sort of a financial master plan on projection, and if you look at our ESCI report, we really never did anything with that. We looked at it, we filed it, we said, yeah, this is great information, and then we never acted on it. And why, I'm not sure. Our levy rates have only gone down because of the 1% limit. So, you know, we're allowed to take up to $1.50. We're well below that in District 21 right now. We haven't gone to the taxpayers to increase that. There were reasons for that in the past history, i.e. 2008, when the economy turned down, but we never rebounded from that and maybe made those hard decisions. We've had a lot of administrative turnover, and you know, just to have a balanced budget every year seemed to be the priority, and the long-term planning was not addressed. And this is kind of a turning point for our districts. Hopefully for the RFA, is to get back on track and fund the organization so that we can provide the level of service to the community that they deserve, not have it be on the backs of the employees who have sacrificed over and over and over to make that happen. So.
I want to ask Commissioner Hanson, as the chair of District 4's board, what your thoughts are when you look at these budgets and reflect upon funding for operations and capital over the last few years.
I'm not sure exactly that I'm being in just for this my first year, complete year, and I'm just sitting here kind of going through them right now. I don't know how we've done it. That's what I really have to say is these guys have done a great job of stretching the money as they can. But I did have one question for Commissioner Ansel. When you stated that our call volume is up 40% was that over the last couple of years, did you say?
Actually, if you don't mind, sir, I'll handle that one. Where I pulled that number from was before the auto aid agreement. I knew that auto aid agreement was muddy things. So that's 2010 to 2008 or 18.
I thought I'd heard you say that in your planning meeting. I just wanted to make sure people knew that.
No,
not including the automatic.
Nope.
That's why I brought it up. And yeah, you made that pretty clear the other night, and I appreciated that.
Okay, so let me just open it up to see if other commissioners want to offer any comments on your thoughts about looking at these budgets and thinking about where you've been in the last few years and where you might need to go. Any comments you want to make here at this starting discussion? Anyone? And remember the mute button because you're all muted. All right, then I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and move to part 2 of the discussion, which is brainstorming. And this is, I'm going to definitely want to hear from everybody here. Your agenda on part 2, back on the second page of your packet, has the questions I'm hoping that we can try to explore just for a bit here. When you think, and this is mostly thinking on the ground about how you all are delivering services out there today. What are the weakest links in terms of our service delivery? What are we doing really well? What stresses on staffing levels and equipment can you anticipate as call volumes continue to rise? And how about the employees? Thoughts about, obviously they're what makes all of this possible. Thoughts about how we're able to be a good employer. It's pretty unheard of for fire unions to be giving back salary and benefits. And your folks have done that in the last few years in order to make this come together and everything stay in place for the community. And then finally, the last question is, what's the alternative? If we don't look to some of these capital needs, what can you anticipate to happen? So I'm gonna go back again and start with Bruce and then Dave, and then hopefully hear from everybody on this one. When you think about our service, what do we do well? What are you a little bit more nervous about, and how do you think that might change in the next few years as population and calls for service continue to go up?
Well, thanks for starting with me. As I'm wandering around trying to get
continuing theme, sorry. Yeah.
feedback from the group. I think I hope I sort of encapsulated what my thoughts were. And again, a lot of this I've heard through the chief in previous meetings, but our call concurrency is a huge issue for me. We have increased percentage of times when we have multiple calls going on at the same time. And so we're just barely meeting our goals. We're relying on our auto aid and mutual aid agreements to cover when we have additional alarms. So for example, if Birch Bay goes on a call, whether it be an aid call or fire call, that station is now out of service, and another station has to cover for them. And as that progress starts, it seems like it never resets itself, because now Blaine is covering for Birch Bay, or Ferndale's covering for Blaine, and all our rigs start chasing each other around, and until the whole thing stops, nobody gets back into their first in area. So we are just barely providing the service that we need to. Again, if you look at all the building that's going on, the increased calls for service, et cetera, the numbers that Jason provided us. I hate to be the doom and gloom, but we're just one major call from this thing falling apart on a daily basis. So we need to bolster that in some way that we can afford to do. We are just getting our sort of fire prevention division up and running. That was a goal of mine when I first started here. We didn't have one. We don't have any real public outreach, public education. Of course, with COVID now, that would be nearly impossible, but COVID's going to go away, or at least get better here in the near future. And we need to reach out to our schools and the public and educate them. We have a deputy fire marshal now that's handling those needs. But you know, getting out and seeing our buildings and knowing what our risks are an area that we've not done as much as we could, in my opinion. I talked about our facilities. They're aging. They're 30 plus years old in some cases. I applaud our employees for coming to work in the buildings that they work out of. They're doing a stellar job, but I think we can do better for them and maybe provide facilities that are more amenable to the public, i.e. if we had a conference room or the ability for people to meet somewhere and come and see, you know, what we do. So none of this stuff we've budgeted for. I mean, we've talked about it since I've been here 5 years. We have these great plans, but we've never put any money towards it. And I think Bill Cushman's going to demonstrate that very clearly to us during his presentation.
Great. Thank you, Bruce. I'll go again to Commissioner Hanson, and then I'll go down the line. Dave, what are your thoughts about the budget, service levels, gaps, risks, where we are now and looking ahead?
Well, listening to Commissioner Ansel, I think he really laid it out for the overall, for the large district, meaning 21 and 4. I think he really addressed some very valid concerns, and some of it I just have to trust his judgment on. He's a little more in tune to that than I am. But I want to say for District 4 right now, I don't think our citizens up here could ask for probably a better response and service that's provided by our front line. One thing I will point out, though, is I was looking back at some recent calls that came in as residential fires, and the one thing we point out every time here is out of a 5-engine response or whatever it may be, there's 1 engine from District 4, which is engine 12, and the rest of the engines usually, if this is within certain parts of our district, but most of the engines come from Bellingham. And so, I mean, that points out something to us. We're very fortunate to have that relationship and be able to count on that. Yep. And I know when we go to that's on one side of our district, and on the other side, obviously, we get the Laurel Group and the stations out there, and sometimes whoever else is included, usually Bellingham there as well. But so, you know, there's definitely the potential for gaps, and again, I really rely on Bruce's knowledge for you know, the big picture, and I think he laid it out real well.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. I'm going to go down the list here. Commissioner Crawford, what are your thoughts about this? How we're doing in service levels, gaps, risks looking forward? You are on mute, sir.
I'll speak. He's in the room here, and with our feedback and stuff.
Okay.
He agrees with what's been said already. to save us some time, I'd really like to hear from Commissioner Bosman, since he's and Commissioner Andrews, but they're our most tenured board members that have seen how we got here and how we're doing.
Yeah, definitely want to hear from everybody on this one. If that's the main input from Commissioner Crawford, I'll go ahead and go straight to Commissioner Bosman for his perspective, hopefully.
Can you hear me okay, Karen?
We can, thank you.
I agree completely with what Bruce has said. I think over the years, you know, I've been a commissioner for a long time and I've watched the development, and where we are now is not probably where we should have been, but we're at a good spot as far as governance leadership. And I think we've had a history of a lack of leadership in that area. Bruce has really helped with that, and a lack of common vision. And I see the RFA as being a great step to increase that, who have a one board with a concerted effort to improving. It's just amazing the way that our personnel, our administrative staff, and our firefighters have responded. It's embarrassing to see the shape of some of the buildings, and we've got to start working on that. We've got to have a plan. We've got, of course, we got equipment that needs to be replaced, but the buildings too. We've got buildings to get rid of. We got buildings that need to be built up. And so I think on a positive note, I think our leadership is probably at the governance level is better now than it has been since I've been a commissioner.
That's a nice thing to be able to say. It doesn't happen all the time. That's great. Commissioner Fisher, you are on mute also. What would you add to this conversation in terms of service levels, concerns about the future, how we've been doing? There you go. Go ahead.
Listening to what everybody said, I mean, I can see that if we don't do something quick, we're going to go down a hole that we'll never be able to get out of. So
that's a high risk you think we're at a high risk turning point, really. We have important choices now to be making. Anything else you would add?
Well, the RFA will help bring us more together with District 4, and we'll be able to service, hopefully we'll be able to service better in the future.
Yeah, that definitely is the hope, and that's a nice thing to be able to tell the voters as well. Commissioner McMurray is not here. Commissioner Andrews.
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said up to this. And also I want to add the fact that I think we ought to emphasize our apparatus is getting older. And it's like an army without a gun. You know, we need to really make sure that our apparatus doesn't get away from us.
Yeah, right. Anything specific to staffing? When I first talked to most of you before we started the project, several of you noted that there were staffing functions, and I think we heard a little bit about this from Bruce, certain types of functions that we were not able to provide with our existing staffing. So I'm sort of wondering, if you think about the functions that you would like to be able to ramp up, we heard a little bit about fire inspections and public outreach. When you think about staffing and what kind of programs and services we're able to offer, are there some gaps you see then, or some priorities moving forward? I'll start again with Bruce, then go to Dave, and then everybody else.
Thank you. I've turned my video off because my mask keeps going funky on me, and I hate to keep reaching up to my face and looking stupider than I already look. So, but
No worries.
the joys of Zoom and COVID. But the facilities is an area we've been dancing around for 2 years now. I drive around the district, and I know that other commissioners here as well, and see just the the routine maintenance being left behind. We've got some rot in some places. We've got moss growing in places. We've got painting issues. We have aging roofs in some areas. We've got earthquake, seismic issues, just sort of general health and well-being, exhaust systems, all that kind of stuff that that we may be falling out of compliance if we haven't addressed. And we've been unable to hire a facilities person. I think we're in the process of working on getting a contractor to give us sort of a laundry list of those things that just need to keep us moving. So that's one thing that we need to take care of. Everybody who owns a home knows that every year there's some maintenance that has to be done, and I think we've neglected that. The concurrency issue, we will be talking about maybe adding staffing to help alleviate some of those back-to-back calls for service. I think that's an area that we could potentially have an impact on. And then supervisory oversight. We really rely on the fire chief, and thankfully to the help of Chief Ward now, who's only an interim position, but we've got to fill that assistant chief position. But their jobs shouldn't be running around day to day and checking in on all the stations. We don't have that. We have 4 stations that are running relatively independently. I trust all of our employees are doing a great job, but we just don't have that overall oversight consistency to be able to monitor what's going on a day-to-day basis and to manage, these bigger calls that come up. We rely on our administrative chiefs as well as our partners in Linden or Ferndale to cover, weekends and evenings on large responses. And to be honest, we've outgrown that model. It may have worked when we were a volunteer organization, but we are claiming to be a paid professional organization, and we need to gear up to be that. So,
thank you, Commissioner Hanson. What thoughts do you have about staffing functions that we are or are not able to perform now? Do you see if there's some gaps there that are of concern to you?
Again, it's hard not to agree with Commissioner Ansel. One of the concerns I've had was, that we have an amazing chief that, he's got great skills and capabilities, but you can only do so much on your own. And it was a big, I could see kind of a big relief for him bringing Chief Ward in. However, there's probably another one of those needed yet in there. And so, understanding we've got, the funding is what we have to look at and how we do that. From the staffing level, I will honestly say I couldn't speak on behalf of the frontline firefighters and how they feel they're staffed, but I definitely listened to that. But for definitely for the administrative staff, for Chief Vanderveen and his crew, I see those guys getting run rampant, and all we can do is try to support them the best we can right now. So I definitely feel that's an area we have to address, and the sooner we can make that position a permanent position. And I think Chief Ward, boy, he'd be great in there, but we've got to go through what process we go through, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Bosman, thoughts on staffing levels, functions we are or are not able to provide that are important, and concerns moving forward?
Well, one position I've wanted for a long time, and I don't know how we can afford to do it, But it should continue to be looked into, and that's a public information officer. There's a lot of really good stuff that our people do that nobody knows about. And either through social media or some other type of outreach, I think it's important that people know what we do and how much we do. And on days when we're running around and can't catch up on calls, nobody knows that that's going on. So I don't have an answer of how to fund that, but that's one area that I think is lacking.
Thank you. Commissioner Andrews, thoughts on staffing and functions we are or are not able to provide now that are important?
I just go right along with Rich, just what he said. That's very important. It's important because we have two areas. We have to get the public up to speed on what we're doing with the RFA. And then, of course, after that is on board, we need a PIO to really get out the information to the public so they can still support us like they're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are fortunate to have Heather Logan working with us on this project, and maybe we can look at, just beyond the RFA, depending on her capacity and yours, of other types of PIO things she could do in this interim period. Commissioner Crawford, thoughts on this one?
So can you hear me okay, Karen?
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
So we have a large geographical area and our response times are somewhat pretty high in some areas. We need to, in my mind, cut those down. And I don't know how to go about that, because right now all we're doing is covering wounds like a Band-Aid. We're bleeding money into stations that, number one, aren't staffed. Number two, we're degrading, and we're putting money into heating and AC and things like that. So they're just sitting idle, and they've been sitting idle for quite a few years, such as District 4's building out there on the Smith Road. I know they sold their White Street station, but the Smith Road station's just sitting vacant. We're paying bills for that. The Semi-Ammo station, again, another vacant station we're paying bills for. We need to unload some of these properties. That might help us financially and provide a couple more positions. And I know everybody says that you don't want to sell these buildings because once you sell them, you can never get them back or get those certain locations. So that's something we need to kind of look at as a funding item, is unloading some of these properties that we're not using.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. Another dimension to the challenge here. Commissioner Fisher, anything to add here on service levels and staffing? You found that mute button, and there we go.
I'm in agreement with what everybody said, especially John speaking on properties that we have that are just being wasted right now.
Okay.
Maybe once we have the RFA established, then we'll be able to get in line and take care of these properties like they should be.
Mm-hmm. We can fix that. Okay, I think we've sort of posed the questions, so I'm going to just give everybody one last opportunity. This is a shorter brainstorming session. Then we have more time for this if there's more that folks want to get into at this point in terms of what are the range of problems you think it's important for us to solve moving forward and to be aware of in the next 7 years that relate to all of this stuff, the money, the buildings, the people, the apparatus. So let me just go around and see if there's one additional round of comments here. Bruce, anything else you would want to add at this point, or a thumbs up to something you've heard along the way in this discussion?
No, I think we're good. And I think the rest of our meeting is going to go into probably all the issues that we've identified here. I think the chief has a presentation on, you know, baseline staffing and apparatus and facilities and pretty much the whole gambit. So
Yep.
I think I'm not hearing anything out of the ordinary that surprises me here from the rest of the board. These are all issues that we've kind of talked about and know they're there and just haven't really pulled the trigger on any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're getting close to the day when we're going to have to do that.
Yes. Commissioner Hanson.
I think I just would kind of close with I really agreed with it with Commissioner Crawford and the comments he was making, especially in regards to the stations and the Smith Road station sitting there. And I think he just made some excellent points on that. And definitely areas that we're going to have to look at addressing.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Bosman.
No, nothing to add.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Crawford.
No, I'm good.
All righty, thank you. Commissioner Andrews.
Nothing more to add.
And last and not least, Commissioner Fisher.
Nothing to add.
Okay. I wonder, I don't know whether he would like to comment, but I wanted to ask if either of the chiefs want to add anything and also to this conversation at this point, and also Mr. Cunningham, if you have anything that you would like to add. So let me just start. Jason, Chief Vanderveen, do you want to add anything at this point on this conversation?
No, you know, I think the commissioners really did a good job of kind of summing up our weak spots, and I just want to say I appreciate that you also pointed out some of our strong suits, which is our folks, and you know, that's a really good foundation to rebuild or renew, whatever, whichever way you want to look at it. I do think that we are in a good spot for this, you know, a good time in our history for this RFA to kind of come together and give us a renewed outlook on the district and help us to look things with fresh eyes. I want to say just personally that I think it's really it's great that we have a board who doesn't have any historical ties to one station, that you're able to look at things objectively and see the warts and that at all of the places, and you know, we're not talking about special projects or special you know, this engine needs a new light bar. That's not what we're focused on here. We're looking at the long range strategic view of what of this where the fire district or where the RFA is going, and that is much appreciated.
Great. Chris, I want to add you there in here as well. Let me go to let me go to Ken if he wants. Kenneth, if he wants to say something, we'll come back to you. I just wanted to heads up on that. Kenneth, is there any comments you want to add in terms of when you look at the services and the challenges, anything that you want to either reinforce or add to this conversation?
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, Karen, commissioners, chiefs. Thank you for letting me speak here. Obviously, this is kind of a big point of why I'm involved in these meetings here. And I know Chief Vanderveen and myself had long conversations about the staffing level of our group and battalion chiefs or data made cars. And so there's lots of options that we're flexible with and providing some coverage for some of our outlying stations, whether that be 63 and 61 when they're on concurrent calls, or to help out the 69 station. They're kind of in between 3 or 4 districts. So there's lots of options. I'm glad to hear that commissioners are all kind of on the same page and committing to getting us some more staffing and shortened response times. And obviously stations is a big one for us. Some of our stations are prone to having some cancer coming out of them and some other kind of issues that we can see. So getting those fixed up for us, as mentioned in an earlier meeting, that we're not needing, you know, huge Taj Mahal type stations. And we all recognize that we're, you know, in the rural county and we don't need anything fancy, but just something that is obviously meeting the requirements of NFPAs and the earthquake meetings and so forth. So like I said, I'm not going to beat around the bush on this. The commissioners all seem like they're on the same page, and those are all things that I can get behind. And obviously I'm willing to have conversations with the rest of them as they see fit moving forward.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being willing to share your perspective here today, because I think it's important. Chris, what are your thoughts about service levels and gaps and capabilities you wish we had?
You know, I don't know so much about the service levels because I don't have any data to look at.
Yeah.
But I don't have any other further comments on to what was already said, basically, about the buildings and the equipment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think then we are able to, at this point, go on to part 3. So we've sort of captured about 15 minutes on our time clock here back. We were of the 30. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm not sure, Matt, if you are going to be doing this or if you are, there he is, the man of the hour, Mr. Davis. I think you're going to launch here, and this is going to be basically an overview of what the statutes tell us about how RFAs can raise money. And this is the PowerPoint that's in the packet behind part 3, starting at page 8. Folks want to get there, and I will shut up and turn this over to Richard. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Good afternoon, commissioners. So Karen, are you going to screen share, or are commissioners just going to look at the presentation themselves?
I gave everybody the ability to share their screen, Richard, so you should be able to see it on the bottom there.
So if you want to run your own PowerPoint, you can.
No, I don't have it up. I didn't know we're doing that. Okay.
Nope, I don't have that one up.
I mean, we all have.
We have it in front of us.
They've got it. They've got the slides in front of them.
Just
I'm good to go here.
I'll carry on then. Thank you. And I do have Matt Paxton on the call. He works with me on fire district issues, and I wanted to kind of be part of this. So first slide, common financing options. Here are kind of just a quick overview of ways for a fire department, whether it be a fire district or an RFA, to get money. The first, obviously, is your fire levy. And you have 3 kinds of levies. There's, regular tax levy that doesn't require a vote of the public unless you're going out for a levy lid lift, but you have the right to just impose a levy. An EMS levy, which does require a vote to establish, and depending on whether it's say a 6-year levy versus a permanent levy, you may have to go back and reauthorize that. I know District 4 has an EMS levy that is still in place. It's a permanent EMS levy. We'll talk about that. You can go out for excess levies as an RFA. There is a major difference between what an RFA can do in that regard and a fire district. And unfortunately, the RFAs don't have as great of a capacity in that regard. We'll deal with that. A different approach is to implement a benefit charge, which more and more districts are doing, but the circumstances have to be right for you for that to kind of be appropriate for the district. And then finally, there's debt that an RFA can issue, both in terms of non-voter approved debt, which is commonly referred to as councilmanic bonds, or voter approved debt. Okay, with that, let's go to the next slide. Your regular tax levy. So an RFA is just like a fire district in the sense of what it can issue without going to the voters. I'm sorry, what it can impose without going to the voters in terms of its regular fire levy. And that is $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And if you've never really thought much about the formula, it's a pretty simple formula of how this is calculated. I didn't put it into the slide, but your total dollar revenue each year is your levy rate, which sometimes is called a mill rate. It's the levy rate times your assessed value, right? Total revenue is levy rate times assessed value. Pretty simple. So that means as your assessed value goes up, your levy rate comes down. Why is that? Because the total revenue that you can get each year is limited by 1%, thanks to Tim Eyman. And those of you who've been around a while will recall when I first started practicing, you could go up 6% automatically each year. And then Mr. Eyman came along, and it's now limited, and has been for many years, to 1% increase per year. So you will you may remember, if you've been around for a bit, through the Great Recession, where property values plummeted. So looking back at that formula, as the assessed value goes down, the levy rate goes up. And many districts were facing a situation where their levy rates were going up and maybe facing proration, which is a situation where you might get your levy rate cut because all the other districts that are within your same jurisdiction are levying close to their max as well. There's a cap. You as a fire district and as an RFA, or what's called a junior taxing district. All junior taxing districts have a cap under the Constitution of $5.90 per $1,000. So that if everybody is levying up to a point that's above 590, then each district starts to have their levy rates cut. We're not in that situation right now, and not foreseeable in the near future. But anyhow, it's just a little primer on how the levy rate works annually, and that's why it's always going up and down. With regards to a situation where your levy rate has, you've got your property values that are going up gradually each year, as we've seen for some time now, and you're limited by this 1% increase per year. So what happens is your levy rate starts to go down, and if you don't go back for a levy lid lift, you can wind up quite a bit lower than your max, which is kind of the situation that you are at the moment. You can go out for a levy lid lift to increase that levy rate all the way back to the maximum of $1.50. And it's actually pretty nice because all you need is a simple majority of the voters to be able to do that. There is, I don't know when it was passed, 6 or 7 years ago, I think, in the statute, the legislature allowed fire departments to go out for a multi-year levy lid lift. And the beauty of this is that you can have a lid lift that is automatic each year for up to 6 years. And the way it works is you set your levy rate for the first year. So say you want to go to $1.50, you set it for that year, and then for the next 5 years, you specify either an index like the CPI, or you specify a percentage. It could be 6%, it could be 10%, whatever you want, that the levy rate will go up each year. So it's like an automatic levy lid lift without going back to the voters. Now, if you do a multi-year levy lid lift, you can only bring that to the voters at a primary or a general election. If you go with the 1-year levy lid lift, which historically has been what most districts do, you can bring that at any election that you want during the year. But I have seen an increase in districts trying to do the multi-year lid lift just to avoid voter fatigue. I had some clients that were going to the voters literally like every year to get back to their $1.50. They said, well, why do that when we can get to the same position by doing one vote every 6 years? All right, so that's kind of the fire levy. Let's go to EMS levy. So in Whatcom County, the county levies an EMS levy, which is a 6-year levy, and I believe it expires in 2022. Although okay, Chief is nodding. So an EMS levy allows you to have a separate levy for sole purpose of funding emergency medical services up to 50 cents per thousand. So if you were able to levy a total of both the max fire levy and max EMS levy, you'd be at $2 per thousand. The problem is when the county levies an EMS levy, then any agency within the county can only levy the difference between what the county levies and 50 cents. So if the county were at 30 cents on their EMS levy, then you could only you could have an EMS levy, but you could only go to 20 cents. Now, you're an RFA that is just going to be created. If the RFA, and you need to decide this as part of this planning process, if you want the RFA to have EMS capacity to an EMS levy, then you have to approve the plan by 60%. So that's a decision point for you. If you want either a benefit charge or an EMS levy, the plan has to be approved by 60%. Otherwise, the plan only needs a simple majority. With regards, let's suppose that you decide that you want to have that option to impose an EMS levy. You could do that for periods of 6 years, 10 years, or permanent. And again, would require, if you didn't do it in the plan right now as the RFA is formed, you could always later on go to the voters after the RFA is formed on a separate vote to then impose an EMS levy. So you don't have to make that decision now, but if you were of a mind to, let's just go ahead and get it done now, so we have that capacity, then it would be, we need 60% when you approve the plan. All right, that is pretty much what I wanted to say on, oh, I should say this. District 4 has an EMS levy right now. That EMS levy will not go away with the formation of the RFA. It can still levy that EMS levy. And it also has an agreement right now with the county to pay the difference between what it gets and what it would have received had the county not levied their EMS levy. So that agreement is still in place. I will make one final point, and that is if the RFA decides to levy an EMS levy, District 4's EMS levy cannot be levied. You can't have the participating jurisdictions levy an EMS levy and have the RFA levy an EMS levy. Okay, with that, I'll move on to excess levies. So excess levies are a tool that fire districts often use, and they can do them for 2 years up to 6 years. They're a voter approved levy, and they're outside. You know, I talked earlier about that $5.90 limitation. They're outside of that limitation, right? So that's why they're called an excess levy. And the way you do that is you specify a dollar amount for the levy. It could be $1, it could be $10, kind of whatever you could get away with the voters. But you specify the dollar amount, and again, it requires a 60% vote to approve. Unlike a fire district, which can levy this O&M levy all the way up for 6 years, RFAs are limited to 1 year. So if you did that, you'd have to be going back to the voters each year if you needed it for multiple years. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Benefit charges. This is a trend that I'm seeing, that a lot of agencies are now starting to go the benefit charge route. And one of the first things that it does is it eliminates your third 50-cent levy. So you've got a total of $1.50 fire levy, but that's actually composed of 3 50-cent levies. If you impose a benefit charge, you're limited to $1. And then the benefit charge is imposed each year on developed properties. It does not apply to vacant land or any land that's undeveloped. Only applies to improvements. And many departments think that it's a fairer way to charge for fire and emergency services, medical services, because it relates to the cost that's involved in addressing a fire on that particular piece of property. So large industrial or commercial properties would be charged more. And you can go to different departments that have these benefit charges, and you'll see a formula that they've created to kind of put in the factors that go toward the difficulty and cost of addressing a fire on developed properties. And they're fairly consistent throughout the state. But the one thing about a benefit charge is that the legislature didn't want you to use that exclusively to supplant property taxes. So they limited the amount that you can collect on an annual basis to 60% of your operating budget. And then the rest of it can be funded. But the nice thing about a benefit charge is that it allows you to avoid the fluctuations that occur with your levy rate, because let's say your levy rate is at $1 initially because you've decided you want a benefit charge, and so the RFA plan includes that. You're at $1, and then that levy rate starts to go downward. You can impose a higher benefit charge to make up the difference. All right, and it's at your discretion as to what you set that at, subject to that 60% of the operating budget limit. One of the things about a benefit charge is you have to provide for an appeal process. So you set the benefit charge, and then property owners who want to complain about it do have the right to do it. But the agencies that we represent that have a benefit charge, it's just, at most, it seems like a handful of complaints are made each year. So that is not a reason not to do that. And this benefit charge, initially, it's for a 6-year term. So if the voters approve it, first term is 6 years, and then you have to go back for renewal. And you could go back for a 6-year again, a 10-year, or permanent. If you get permanent, then you never have to come back to the voters again to renew it. But analysis kind of has to be done as to whether your district is, or I'm sorry, your agency, how well it would do via a benefit charge. I mean, if your district was comprised of just farmland and a couple of farmhouses and barns and that kind of thing, you probably wouldn't do very well because of the cost of addressing. There's a lot of vacant land that would not be assessed under a benefit charge. But anyhow, that's a tool, and again, it's becoming more used now. I would say throughout the state. The next thing that I want to address is debt. And these are, there's really 2 ways to issue debt. One is that the commission of the RFA can issue what are called councilmanic bonds. Still need a bond counsel for this, but it basically just eliminates the need to go to the voters. And the limits for what an RFA can issue in debt is different than a fire district. For an RFA, you can levy up to 0.75% of the RFA's 0.75%, I'm sorry, of the RFA's assessed value. And you can do that for a term of repayment up to 20 years. The next kind of bond that you can issue is one that is voter approved, and like the other things we've been talking about, when you go to the voters, you generally need 60%, and that's the same for these kinds of bonds. You can issue twice the amount that you can just at the commission level. It can be up to 1.5% of the RFA's assessed value. And the term of the obligation for these cannot exceed 25 years. So those options are available to you as well. I don't think I have anything more to really add about the bonds. Are there any questions?
Folks have questions? I'll note that there was some stuff in here that I did not know about the 1-year M&O excess levy only for RFAs. I did not know that was a distinction between them and fire districts. Does anyone have any questions for Richard? I know this is the last thing between you and a 10-minute break, but I still should ask. So, hearing none, we know how to find Richard and Matt and Mr. Quinn if you have questions about funding authority. So I think this was a really good overview and a helpful grounding reminder for folks if you haven't thought about these things in a while. Richard did a great job in laying it out. So thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, gentlemen. So now break time. So if everybody can take 10 minutes, and my clock says it's 2:35, and if we can be back on screen, or don't touch your computers, but you can wander away from them. I'm afraid of touching anything at this point.
Don't log out, please.
Come back and we'll get relaunched at 2:45. Thanks, everybody.